So Kemi Badenoch has apparently discovered that there's a bit more racism in the UK than she previously admitted. Bit strange, but let's get into this a little bit. Let's go into an interview that she did with the Sunday Times on this topic. So the interview was done on August the 23rd, 2025. And it's quite a wide-ranging interview talking about various different elements of Kemi Badenoch's political situation now, her views with regard to, the state of the Conservative Party itself, her views with regard to reform and various other things. But the thing I want to zero in on is the racism bit. So she says here, the article says here, Badenoch has always praised Britain as the best place in the world to be black, quote unquote, a place where, quote, ethnic minorities do very well, unquote. Now her optimistic vision of Britain seems to be blurring somewhat. She tells me that she has been surprised by the racism she has encountered in her role. She says that on social media, quote, there's a lot of ethno-nationalism creeping up. Lots of stuff about my race and my ethnicity and the tropes around, well, she couldn't possibly have done it by herself. She mentions the New Statesman came up with some article basically saying that these other white folks had written her speeches, and then talking about the tropes leveled at her about her being late and being lazy. So this is very, very interesting for me because first, there's a couple of things there. First of all, she's talking as if this is just starting to happen. Well, Kemi Badenoch has helped to create this environment. Kemi Badenoch and her Conservative Party that she's part of, which has been in power, by the way. Sometimes you hear her talking and she talks as if the Conservatives have been out of power for 15 years or something. They've only been out of power for a year. Before that, they were 14 years from 2010 to 2024. 14 years they were in power. And what were they doing in that time? Whipping up anti-immigration fervour. Talking about Suella Braverman, think about another one of these former colonial, subjects, descendants of former colonial subjects who have now come to become, the chief right-wing cheerleaders. Suella Braverman, Priti Patel, all these people, despicable people, in my opinion. They're the ones who've been whipping up the anti-immigrant fervour. And I know some of these right-wing black folks and Asians and South Asians and stuff, maybe they think that, oh no, this is about immigrants. This is about refugees. It's not about people like me. We came here to work. My parents came here. They were invited here and they got jobs. This is the kind of foolishness that I hear fairly often whenever immigration comes up from a lot of African people, a lot of people from the Caribbean, and to a lesser extent Asians. They think that in the minds of the bigots and the racists and the xenophobes and the fascists, they think that in the minds of those people that there's a clear distinction between, oh no, these are the legitimate immigrants. Yes, they're okay. We like these. Kemi Badenoch, she's all right. Priti Patel, she's okay. But oh no, all these other ones, no, these Abduls and Hassans from Iraq and Eritrea and Afghanistan and, they're the bad ones. Don't be so stupid, Kemi. Don't be so ridiculous. In the minds of these people, race absolutely matters. Race absolutely is central to all of these things, ultimately. Ethno-nationalism. She mentions ethno-nationalism. And the ethno-nationalism she's talking about, I'm sure, is the idea that in the UK context, that being British must mean for these people being white. And if somebody is not white, cannot be racialized as being white Caucasian, then for these ethno-nationalists, they are not really British or English. And you see this. Go into the comment sections is the best place to go. Go to the comment section of Daily Mail and have fun in there. Go in the comment section under videos that are posted by newspapers, The Sun, The Telegraph, The Mail, The Daily Mail. Goodness knows what it would be like on places like the Daily Express, for goodness sake, and the Star. These tabloids, the real bottom end of the barrel tabloids kind of thing. But go into those comment sections and you'll see And you can go back many years. There has been a very, very, very strong groundswell of this anti-blackness, this ethno-nationalism, this white supremacy. And 2024, remember the riots in 2024? Do you remember how those came about? Those came about because Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson in particular put out these ideas that the person who had killed those poor girls in Southport was an asylum seeker. And they put it out there. And then because the groundwork had been prepared by the Conservative Party, by Reform, and before then by the Brexit Party, and before then by UKIP, and by the likes of the EDL and Tommy Robinson, and, you know, by the Labour Party as well, you know, with some of the rhetoric with regard to immigration, the groundwork had already been created. There were a sufficient number of people, by no means the majority of people, not even a large minority, but there was a sufficient number of people who were ready and willing to basically take up arms and go and try and kill asylum seekers, people holed up in hotels, you know? And this has been coming for a long time. Kemi Badenoch, you know, is someone who has previously been quite dismissive about the very idea of racism and all these sorts of things. And now she's quietly starting to admit and accept that it's here and it's happening, and she's being affected by it. What to say, man? I think for those people who are like Kemi Badenoch over the last 10 to 15 years, more and more people, black people in particular, I'll speak specifically for black people, black African in particular, but also black Caribbean people, have been coming out of the woodwork and identifying themselves as being right-wing, anti-woke in particular, anti-BLM. I've got family members who fall into this camp, anti-Black Lives Matter, and I'm not a supporter of Black Lives Matter at all. I've got very serious problems with the Black Lives Matter official movement, if it even still exists, but I don't then align myself with the far right in this country. These people these black people who join into these anti-woke whatever, you know, camps, I always say to them, so this family member of mine, I always say to them, listen, these people at the heart of these movements that you're part of, they don't even think that you are, you know, human. They don't think that you are fully human. They think that black people, they think that the black people are inferior on a biological level, on a genetic level. Race science is very, very strong amongst these people. Eugenics is what half of these people are all about. I'm talking about the ideologues. I'm talking about the people who actually generate the ideas and ideologies to push out there. Those rank and file bigots who go out and try and smash hotel windows and all that sort of stuff. Most of those probably they're just more of the common garden variety of racist and bigot who just, you know, maybe they don't even think too deeply about this sort of stuff. But if you go higher up and start to trace the ideological lineage of these people, and then you will see what their ideological lineage is all about. It's about race science. It's about racial purity. It's about eugenics. I think we need to get to a point, particularly as I think black people here, those of you who are on the right, those of you vloggers, for example, who are out there, you know, interviewing Tommy Robinson and cheerleading the EDL and saying, yeah, we're against Islam. And yes, Islam, they're, you know, saying that they're against Islam, they're against jihadism and all this sort of stuff. Guys, don't be so pathetically stupid. There's a term which is useful idiot. This kind of person, these right-wing blacks, are useful idiots. They will be used to give a facade. And I'll put Kemi Badenoch in that camp, I'm afraid. These Priti Patel, Suella Braverman, they are useful idiots who will be used kind of like, you know, you have greenwashing or corporate social responsibilities, where these corporations will like, oh, look, we've got this environmental campaign that we're doing. Yay. Meanwhile, yeah, but what about all those, millions of acres of forest that you're chopping down in Brazil to create whatever, you know what I mean? The national resources that you're then selling off. or corporate social responsibility, where these corporations will do, have like, oh, we spent £2 million on this, I don't know, tree planting campaign. Meanwhile, we also, have basically, we are behind the devastation of people's lives in various parts of the world, in Congo and whatnot, because we get the minerals from there which power the phones that we use and all that sort of stuff. It's the same in the political sphere. You have these non-white faces who are there to persuade the masses that, oh no, this isn't fascism, this isn't Nazis and fascism. No, it's not that. This is inclusive. Look, we've got a black leader. We've got Asians here. Look at this, look at this. But, these foolish people are just going to be used, and they'll be thrown away as soon as they're no longer needed, frankly. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on Kemi Badenoch discovering racism in the UK, and that there's more of it than she thought there was. Let's see what happens anyway in that regards. But for now, thank you for watching. My name's Eli Wananda. I have many other videos on my channel which you may find interesting. There's one here which YouTube will recommend, and there's one here which I think follows on nicely from the topic of this video. All right, take care of yourselves. I'll speak to you soon. Peace.